my name is Megan Dixon, and I'm currently a high school teacher. I teach social studies, and I'm working on my master's through Georgetown College in getting my ELL certification. I'm here with Lila Brindley, who is my colleague and teaches science at the high school. Although she does not currently work with ELL students, she has in past years in her career. Today we're going to be focusing on assessment and how to best assess ELL students. So one of the first things we talked about in my ELL class was testing in all 4 domains for ELL students. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
For me in science class, we test the 4 domains of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. In reading, I typically have the students read passages aloud, and they have to read a passage at their current level, so they would not read out of the 9th grade textbook if their reading level is 4th grade. So I would find something typically off the internet from a 4th grade reading level,
right,
and have them read it aloud. For writing, if they're lower, I'll have them work on sentence structure, and as they progress they can work on essays, and after that we'll move into lab reports, which is a little bit more detailed, and they have to be a better writer. For listening, I can just give oral directions in class and watch them as they do the assignment or the task. As they progress even more, we can give oral lab assignments, and I can watch the follow through of that, but you wouldn't want to do that because of safety issues until you're sure that they can make it through the general day-to-day directions, listening. And in speaking, we do oral presentations. I don't ever have them do it alone. I don't have any students do a oral presentation alone. And with ELL students, I pair them with a very high-functioning student in case they need help, and that's always gone very well.
Right. So I know one of the most important things when assessing ELL students in these domains is making sure that we're only assessing one domain at a time. For example, we wouldn't want to give them some sort of long reading passage and then ask them to write an essay about it, because at that point we're testing 2 very high level skills in reading and writing, where they might be very good in one, it might not come across because they can't do the other. Did you ever have any experience doing anything like that with your students?
I have. Several times we have had students, we've assessed them in speaking, so instead of having, if they weren't very good in writing, they would speak their answers to give me an oral essay answer, and you can get so much more out of them.
Right.
Because you find out how, oh my gosh, they really do know the content.
Right, so even if they don't have the means to write the answers, they can still tell you that they know the content.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So one of the other big ideas that we've been talking about is for ELL students, and really all students, they find a lot more ownership when they have a role in the assessment process. What kind of role do you envision, or did you have your ELL students play?
First of all, we need the ELL students to figure out which of the 4 domains that they are strongest in. And then once they know the area they are strongest in, we can design their assessment based on that. For example, if we know a student is very good at speaking, then we would have one-on-one assessments where I would ask the questions and the students would speak aloud the answers.
That's great. And then even from the beginning, I know in a lot of our classes here at the high school where we don't work with very many ELL students, we have our students participate in helping set learning goals and learning targets and kind of give them ownership in their learning. And do you think that's important for ELL students too?
Yes, ELL students need to be able to write their own learning goals and learning targets, because we need to help them develop their English language skills.
Right.
So writing those targets is essential to them.
And we make sure that they would have targets for how they want to progress in their language. So in those 4 domains, how they're going to improve in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, as well as how they're going to improve in content area. So in my class, history, and what they're going to learn in for you, biology. Perfect. So then I guess the last big thing that we need to talk about today is that standardized testing is really a big issue. If we turn on a news channel, if we pull up the internet and look at the news, everybody's always like, should we be standardized testing? And we know that that has a lot of issues for ELL students too. Because again, it doesn't just focus on maybe one domain that they're good at, so it has a lot of variables that can keep them from performing well in it. And so do you have any thoughts about that?
For ELL students, you know, a lot of our standardized testing is multiple choice or essay, which here in Kentucky we call constructive response now. And if those students aren't good at writing and they have lots of constructive response, they're not going to do very well.
Right.
But if they could speak those answers aloud, and right now that's just not an option on standardized testing. So
Right.
until we can make those changes at a higher level than in the classroom, because we know that that's the best thing
Right.
for the students, but that needs to come from a higher level.
Right. And then the last thing that I really want to mention is that we have to be very intentional in our assessment practices, because we want to make sure that when we are testing our content standards, we're really testing content, and when we're testing our language standards, we're really testing language standards. So were you very concrete in that you separated those two targets when you worked with your ELL students?
Yes. So we would have two targets at a
Mhm.
time. One would be the language target we were working on at the time, whether it be the reading, writing, listening, or speaking.
Mhm.
And then there would be a science content target that went with it. So the student knew what science content plus what language
Perfect.
domain we were working on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today and sharing your experiences with me as I move towards getting my certification.
You're welcome.